Hi everyone, Shane here from ComX with Jerome.
Hey guys.
Hey Jerome. We're here tonight to talk to SK and Isaac George. We'll be talking to them tonight, and we'll also be reviewing some comics at the end with Brad again. I think he was on last week. So let's just let me press the right button and we'll get on with the show. Good evening, everyone. Our first guest tonight is SK. He's here to talk about, well, a few things to do with writing and so forth. I'll let him introduce himself, and we'll get on with the night. Hi, SK.
Hey, Shane. Hey, Jerome. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming.
I can see Rob and Lays here as well in the chat. Nice to say hi.
Hey guys.
Hey, Spedsy. And I'll put him up. And Lee. G'day, Lee. I have a bad habit of not going to the comments when we start.
No, it's my go-to, because if they're fantastic enough to come watch us, I'm fantastic enough to say hello. And Mr. Darren Close.
Hey, yes. Darren.
Hey, Darren.
Okay. Look. Thanks for having me on. Look, when you approached me, I actually had this topic in my head for quite a while, and it's actually really to help newer creators, because it's sometimes you have fragments of what you want to tell, and if you have these fragments, sometimes it's really hard to piece all these fragments together. So, and I'm gonna share some secret sauce, and it's really if you're a newer creator, or even if you're an existing creator and you just can't get that next story out. I hope these points will really help. So I've shared something with Shane. It's if you guys really want this afterwards, I'm happy to share the Google link out to it. But this is how I basically build a story. And people in the comments, people listening, chuck questions at the whole time. I will stop at any time to answer things through. So don't stress. Just chuck it through the comments. Happy to stop and ask anything. Okay, so there's two big components when you're writing a story. And it's generic in both cases. One of them is the world building piece. What is that world you're trying to create? And the second thing is the plot. Now, if we're talking world building, and to be really fair, I hate lazy world building. And what that means is, it's just Sydney, it's just Melbourne, it's just Manila, it's just whatever. I'm going, guys, there's so much more to that. For example, somebody wants to use, and I'm having a chat to somebody who wants his main character to be a U.S. Marine and all the rest of it. And he says, it's just, he's like, a Punisher type character, blah, blah, blah. I'm going, great. Is U.S. still a superpower? What do you mean? Maybe they got invaded. Maybe they haven't. Maybe England has recolonized the world. Maybe it's Spain. Mm-hmm. Really? Why wouldn't I do that? I'm going, when you're writing a story, there's so much you can do. For you to just have the story set in the real world, I consider that very, very lazy story writing. I mean, world building. Mainly because, gosh, you got all this things. And I'll come to the first point, which is basically the type of the world. And that's usually what you need to think about. Where is it set? Time periods, is it a fantasy type world? Is it cyberpunk, diesel punk? You could consider that. Actually, a really easy way to start on the world is, and this is, I love this as a concept, start with the energy source. And you guys are thinking, what the hell are you talking about? Well, if you think about how energy sources play in human development, it's actually huge, because energy dictates what happens in the human civilization. It always has, and it will continue to. Okay, if your world is built off, say, steam, that's steampunk, which means that's, you're talking about making hot air balloons, things that are powered by steam. Hey guys. And then you've got all this stuff that you're building, and then you got diesel punk, which is very much World War II, because that's where you got that used as energy source. Now you got to think, okay, now that you've got the world that exists, and you've got something in your head, is it cyberpunk, is it whatever? You got to think what systems exist in it. And it's sometimes really interesting because these are the rules and the laws of the world. So if you think about, say, in terms of story writing, change one law, one rule that you take for granted right now, and you can build an entire story out of it. Like, I'll give you a really cool example. What happens if murder was legal right now? That's a fantastic world you can build around. What happens if theft was legal? You know, then you got a whole concept about property is not worth anything because property doesn't, or maybe then in that case, because theft is legal or property doesn't matter, you get a Star Trek type world where everything's utopian. You don't own possessions. Now, if you break it down to anything, you change any one single law in modern society, you've got a total different world. Okay, now we think about it in terms of, and this is where a character like Doctor Strange, I find is actually very difficult to write properly, mainly because magic, it's so easy for people to ignore rules. And you've got all the Deus Ex Machina. You know, Doctor Strange can cast spells, he can do anything. What's he got to be worried about? It's a very difficult thing to write because you can't write conflict and tension if the guy can literally do anything. So what some writers have done with Doctor Strange is, and it's where it's inconsistent, is some make him too powerful and some make him too weak. And then you've got this inconsistency in truth because you're moving from writer to writer to writer. Now, if Doctor Strange had a set rule of magic where all the rules are properly defined, which it hasn't been, and you build those rules up, you've now got a system of magic which is explainable, and also it gets the reader invested. That's probably the key thing, because the reader now knows the rules, and the reader can now have expectations. You can always subvert those, and you can always change the rules, but by establishing a baseline, it allows you to build on that. Same with technology. Cool. Yeah, same with technology. And I'll use the MCU in terms of technology. When Iron Man was first came in, his suit of armor could not fly very high.
Yeah.
And then as it then evolves through, you got the technology building on the technology. Again, Iron Man suits are the absolute perfect discussion point here, because it then allows you as the writer in this world that you've created to go, oh wait, I can't make Tony Stark automatically have a suit that can have nanites, because if you did that jump straight away, it disorientates the reader, and you go, wait a minute, I've had all these rules put in front of me. I need to see the progression, and that actually gets good plot and good storytelling involved, which is the absolute keys. And it's something to consider, absolutely something to consider. If what is your underlying system that your world uses, and you're talking technology, magic, even if it's a real world scenario, like if you talk about spy thrillers, what technology exists there, what doesn't, what can or can't the hero do. And by establishing rules and systems, it makes it so much more exciting for the reader. There's one absolute classic, Avatar: The Last Airbender. And for people who like that, and I absolutely love it, because it and you saw the deviations. In the beginning, you only had the 4 elements to deal with. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
100%. If you have if you can do anything, you do nothing basically, which is But with Avatar, as the bending evolved, suddenly you had, oh wait, I'm a firebender, for example, but if I use a water bending technique, I can now divert lightning, and as one of the huge plot elements. And by knowing the rules of what the base is, and then building on those rules and systems, the reader or the viewer will go, oh my God, that is so exciting. Now imagine if you could do anything. it actually would be a very, very boring series. The fact that they couldn't do everything makes it very exciting. Okay, and this is so the thing is, most people when they start writing, the top 2 are given. They spend hours upon hours with, oh man, my the world is this, my character can do this, this is his superpower, this is his weaknesses. They'll spend hours on these 2, and that's probably the most exciting part of world building. They kind of ignore the rest. But I'm sorry, it happens. They ignore the rest.
Yeah.
But the rest is just as important. And the rest is, in terms of storytelling, it helps the build. What are the people and the culture like? And we're talking in terms of the way people speak. And you know what? In a lot of the books I write, what I always do is, like, if you ever, by the way, I don't know whether I should say this. I'm going to say it. I'll get in trouble for this. There's actually a lot of swearing in my books. But
there is?
But I don't put any swearing in them. Because what I do is, and I use the Disney technique of swearing, I make up words. So that's the apps. So I can go, Shane, or the roll down method, if you like. The roll down, the Disney method. Shane, you was gobble. I've just swore at you. And you stupid was gobble. You know what I mean? It's that's not my new word, by the way. Trademark pending. But you know what I mean? By having that, and the thing is, the coolest thing about writing different words is in context. If you read things in context, it will make sense. Like, you can use simple words. Yes, no. I'm giving you the key words to use. Yes, no, dad, mom, a swear word, frustration word, an excitement word. Now, if you use those in context, people can know what they're trying to say without even you telling what those words are. But what that does is it actually builds more into the world, that you think, oh gosh, this is how these people communicate. And you can have really big cultural difference in the world. And the thing is, think about how people exist in the world. And unfortunately, some of it is stereotypical, because as a writer, you can't get every single nuance down. It's very difficult in a very short period of time. But you can generalize. Is a culture very inclusive? Is a culture, very, push back on strangers? Are they very athletic? You've got all these things to do in terms of the people and culture in your world. And just think about it in terms of, the real world scenarios and real world planning. Gosh, you could do anything with culture. And that actually makes it very exciting, because by putting in culture and people into your world, it makes it feel real. And it makes it feel like you've thought about it. Okay. The next few are again, things that people skip, but are just exciting. Physical structures in the environment. It's actually really boring to keep going. You know what? It's a city. It's a metropolis. It's this. It's done. Even in the world of Judge Dredd, and I know if Mark's still listening, he loves this one, because I know in the UK, 2080 is huge. But even in the metropolis, they even explored outside megacity once and outside the other megacities of what sits outside it. And just knowing those structures that exist, you can hint at things. By the way, when you're world building, you actually don't need to know all the answers. But you do need to know enough that you can then tell the story out of it. And the coolest thing if you world build properly is the number of plots that you can get out from world building is incredible. Because as you world build, you're going, oh, wait, this would be really nice to happen. What if somebody tries to shake the system up? Or what if someone finds a new tech or a new spell or whatever it is? Yeah. And that builds your story. Okay, the next point. Look, I'll have to say, there's only one person you can really reference with history, Tolkien. He's got his story.
He's perfect, yeah.
And I've read The Lord of the Rings, and I always use this as a really fun example. In the first 100 pages, Frodo hasn't left the Shire yet. You know about his cow. You know about what Bilbo's going to do with his, 100 pages of Lord of the Rings, and they haven't left the Shire. But guess what? I know the history of every single Hobbit. I know who Frodo's cousins, dogs, sisters, and oh gosh. But getting to the history of the story, and that's the coolest thing. You can then start to build out the world a lot more. How did you come to the point you are now? And by thinking how you come to the point you are now, it actually helps develop and shows you where you need to go in the future. So that's where you're thinking, oh gosh, if I'm talking historical context, think about civilizations and how things have changed. Without history, you wouldn't understand why people make the decisions they make now. And I always think that it's a very fascinating way to explore the world from a really historical perspective. And if you like, and this is where I always like to say, play alternate history. And that's where I'm saying, don't play the lazy game of, you know what, everything just turned out the way it turned out, and this guy is here for it. If you're going to world build, and you're going to world build properly, play the alternate. What happened if Russia had won the World War II? That would have been really interesting to say. So again, there's a computer game if you guys have played Command and Conquer.
Yep. Yeah.
Total alternate history, and I love it. It's the fun of the game where. Can you pop up Lay's comment?
I wasn't watching.
I'm here now. I'm here now. I'm here now. So look, by the way, it's not that even if you start your story and you're halfway through it, it doesn't stop you from doing all these things now. And it's actually, if you stop, say, mid-series to do all these things, it actually is very, very exciting because you can start planning, oh, this is my world and how to exist within it. Now, talking back to that alternate history thing. There's a lot of wonderful, wonderful what ifs, and I love this. And I'm a little bit of history buff in terms of, like, for example, talking about historical context. After Pearl Harbor, Japan could have taken over the U.S. And they've said that. Well, they didn't have enough ammunition. They weren't ready. And one of the reasons the U.S. was so powerful in World War II is because they weren't invaded again. And basically, U.S. became the manufacturing hub of the allies. Basically, England couldn't manufacture much without getting bombed every second day. Nobody was bombing the U.S. So the U.S. would go, you know what? I'm going to build 100 tanks, and I know I'm going to make 100 tanks because guess what? Nobody's going to attack my factories.
Yeah.
Now, historical change in history. What happens if Japan had launched a ground assault after Pearl Harbor? U.S. was not ready. And if the U.S. has an enemy inside its country, would they have then said, I'm going to sign up to the war in Europe? They might not have. They might have gone, you know what? I've got a problem here. Until I solve this problem here, I'm gonna go. What happens is the whole Manhattan Project was more or less developed in isolation. They had no pressure. Like if you know, Germany at the time was trying the V1, V2, and all the new rocket technology. They were trying to do the super tanks and all the rest of it. Guess what the Allies were doing? Oh, they're gonna build a V1 rocket there. Let's bomb that place. The scientists over there, let's bomb that place. Manhattan Project was, you know what? We've got all the time in the world, and we've got a huge desert out there we can test all this stuff in. Nobody's going to bother us. Now imagine if there was somebody there to bother them. Would they have done everything they would have done in the same order, in the same context?
That's a good point.
That's by the way, that's an entire story that has never been told. So I'm giving out free story ideas, by the way, if anybody wants it. So I'm not
listening, guys.
Not only am I telling how to do it for yourself, I'm actually giving away a lot of really cool ideas. And that's a whole story concept you can have. What happens? Because, gosh, I don't know. It maybe in a multiverse somewhere that happened. Maybe it hasn't. So if you go back to key moments, and this is where I think is always really fun. If you want to start off really simple world building, go back to key moments in history where you think one thing could have flipped one way or flip the other way. And just always imagine what happens if it flipped the other way.
Exactly.
Japan launched a ground assault after Pearl Harbor. Well, the world would have been totally different. What happens if, say, the Spaniards colonized Australia before the British did? I don't know what would have happened. And you can then use a lot of historical context to kind of answer these questions. Like the Spaniards went to South America, if in historical context. What happens if they didn't go to South America and they came to Australia? Would things have been very different? Of course they would have. And that's a whole story idea you can definitely explore. What happens if the world, you know how the continental drift, where the world split apart? What happens if there was no drift? What happens if it stayed as a single landmass? You know what I mean? Just having that one flip or that one change, and the world becomes a different place.
Totally different place, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I always love doing. And the thing is, that then launches everything, because by the way, I haven't left history yet, because people don't consider that. And I think that's the biggest shame involved. For example, I did write one called Transhuman, which is an alternate world reality where cybernetics become a lot more. It's the cusp of cybernetics, which basically says bionic arms and stuff were just happening. Mm-hmm. So in that alternate history, cybernetics exist and are used. Who's going to get them first? Well, my case was I thought the military will get them first. What happens if a wounded soldier leaves the military? Who gets the cybernetic after? And what would people's reaction be to all that? And so I always find it very fascinating that you have to touch on the history. Hey, Brad.
Hey, Brad.
Yeah. You have to touch on the history, because without knowing the historical context of where your world is and why it is, everything gets missed out, because you don't know why systems exist the way they do, what rules or the laws exist the way they do. And it's actually a very fascinating, and one thing about world building is, and I'll caution this, is when you get started, you can dig yourself this huge hole and never come out. And as exciting as that is, and exciting as you to delve into it, my only advice would be, at a certain point, step out of it, because you then have to build your characters. And this is the point where people have a lot of fun, the whole character building. And it's character building now in context. So the world, and you got to remember, society and the world shapes who you are and how you react to things. So if in a world of magic, people might not be afraid of it. It might be just commonplace. But think about the world of Harry Potter. Magic is commonplace, but it's only hidden. Certain people. Yeah, it's hidden. It's a hidden world. So now you're going to consider how a Muggle see it and all the rest of it. You know, how is it? And it's fascinating. Look, there's two ways when you world build to introduce the audience to the world building. And one way I like, one way not so much. But I understand the power in both. One of the easy ways to introduce the world is what they call the everyman scenario. So one of the it's such an interesting touch point, because we're the character part. So one of the characters is what they call an everyman, which basically is our representation into the world. Harry Potter in the first book was our everyman, which meant as Harry learned about how magic, the wizarding school, Hogwarts, and all those worked, we were learning about that world through Harry. So that is one really interesting technique to introduce the world to the reader. Think about Ghostbusters. The world of Ghostbusters is a world where ghosts exist. And ghosts are real and they're prevalent. And people acknowledge that ghosts exist. Now, the main characters of Ghostbusters were all scientists. You know, you have Venkman and all the rest of it. So the problem about that is when they started talking, it became very expositional. And that's something you want to avoid in world building, which is basically, and going back to Avatar and the Airbender, the one thing that they did so wrong in the movie was they expositioned probably for 10 minutes in the beginning of the movie, explaining everything. That's horrible. That's bad. Avoid. What you want to do is you want to kind of if you're going to do exposition or narration, do just enough, just the absolute bare minimum. Because if I explain the world to you, it's boring. It actually is very, very boring. You want to let the reader or the viewer or whoever's getting interested experience your world. And that's very different.
Yeah.
If you spend, and that's why I'm not gonna pick on anybody. I'll be good. I won't be nasty. But if you spend the first 10 pages of your comic book explaining the world, you've made a mistake. Because you want to spend the first 10 minutes, 10 pages or 10 minutes of getting the viewer immersed in the world, and then have them discover its secrets as we go along. Again, Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Did you learn every single spell in the beginning? Did you learn there were a magic society that nobody knew about? You didn't. It was a lot of it was inferred as the story progressed. So you learned about the train, you learn about this, you learn about there's a wizarding school, you learn about all that. And as you learn it, it's a lot more immersive than, oh, by the way, yeah, there's this. Here's the fact sheet, just read through it and, no.
Yeah.
And now having your characters in there, so back to that point of the characters, having the everyday man scenario is really key, because having the everyday man scenario allows the reader to immerse it. The other way, which I think is a little bit more exciting, is just drop your reader into it. Let them figure it out. Have none of the characters to be everyday mans. Have no Harry Potters to see it happen, and just drop them in. You're talking more like the Lord of the Rings. There's an elf, there's an orc, deal with it. If you do it right, it's actually a much better way, because you'll have all these questions and you'll just be going, an orc, what do they do there? And why is there a giant spider there? And oh God, why are there giant spiders in the wall? And that type of thing, I think it's actually, if you do it right, it's actually a lot more exciting, because it's slightly less expositional. Even with the everyday man, what happens with Harry Potter in the first book? If you notice, a lot of the times he was just asking questions. Ron, what's that? Oh, Hermione, how do I do this? It was a lot of question asking, which is still very expositional. Imagine if you followed without Harry Potter. Imagine if it was just Ron going to school. Then you can tell the story of, say, Ron going to school without all the exposition, and the reader has to just figure things out and try to work out the rules. A good example would say be like Fifth Element, the Luke Benson movie.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Flying cabs just exist. Deal with it. No explanation of how they work. There was a little bit of expedition, but it was very much plot-based. It was plot-based exposition. I need to gather who's the fifth element. I need to gather all the stones. It was very much plot-pushed exposition as opposed to world-building exposition. So there is a big difference between the two. And if you ever get around to doing it, know what your characters stand for. And usually, that's how you build your characters to be really fleshed out. Because if you know where they come from in your world, what's important to them, what environment did they come from? Were they poor, rich? Did they get what they want as a kid? Did they not get what they want as a kid? Understanding all that history, your characters should be so fleshed out that even if you don't, and this is the cool part about when you're writing, is subconsciously you'll write them in a way that's in your head. You don't actively have to think this guy is poor, but when it comes to money, maybe when you write it, you automatically think, oh wait, he wouldn't have bought that, or he would have tried to negotiate the price here. While someone who's rich and never had a want would just have bought it. And guess what? Your characters then become very real. And if you do it right, it becomes very real, and people will relate to that. And it makes your characters a lot more interesting. Now, if everybody was just the same and you don't understand how it works, they become a little bit of vanilla copies of themselves. And the worst thing is when a characters become, and I do a lot of lettering, and the worst thing that I always find is if I can switch dialogue between characters and it makes no difference, then you know the characters aren't fleshed out properly. If I can basically go, oh, he said that, she said that, I can swap it, and the story, nothing affects the story, or it doesn't affect the way they talk. Like I had one I was actually lettering a superhero team, and what you tend to find is I could move dialogue between all the characters because all the dialogue was exposition. Oh, do this, chase this, do this. And it was nothing built around how the characters would speak. And not having that, or where they're from, or having that, like I said, if you want to swear, make up words, not having all that in place. One thing I always do is, and again, if you ever read my books, nearly every of my characters has a certain catchphrase. And it's not like the Bart Simpson "I caramba" catchphrase. It's just a way they always say something. And I'll give you an example, and just to make sure, somebody who always is very optimistic. Their term or phrase would be when something goes wrong, look, don't stress, it's fixable. Or let me fix it, let me help. And these type of people, when they talk, they have a certain way of talking. Now, someone who is very negative would go, oh gosh, not again, oh, woe is me. And if I swap the dialogue between, say, these two people, even if it's about the same thing, it's different. Exactly, it won't work. But if you write it very vanilla, guess what? I could keep swapping dialogues all over the place, and man, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't care. And that's the thing. You won't care about the characters. And when you're world building, that's another thing that you have to be careful of. You tend to care too much. And I haven't released this one particular book yet, but I've actually been world building this for too long. And I have an editor of mine, and I killed off one of the characters. And her comment to me was, if you kill her, I'm never doing any of your editing ever again. You have to, you can't kill her.
Oh no.
You can't kill her. I'm not working for you again. You're a great guy, you pay on time, we have no disagreements, but I'm not doing it again, because if you kill her, I'm out. And she was that strict. It actually was, I brought her back, by the way. At the end of the day, I let her live, but I think it was important because the editor gave the reason why she should live. And I thought, well, that's a really, really strong case. Yeah, she can live.
Okay.
But I did tell her she doesn't make it to the end. I made it very clear. She's, and that's where she's interesting. Like, if you look at, say, Breaking Bad, for example, Jesse Pinkman was meant to die in season 1. But because he was such a fun character, they let him last all the way to the end.
Oh, okay.
So he was actually written out. It was the viewer's reaction and the writer's reaction to it that was so crazy. They kept it, but he was meant to die. He was meant to die at the end of season 1. Okay, world building out of the way, and I could keep going on, but I did promise I'll finish this in 7:45. I mean, I could go on for hours. By the way, so yeah. Now we get to the plot. Okay, look. And look, what I always say to a lot of starting creators is, look, break the rules, have fun, break all the rules, do whatever you like, but understand the rules first. Because if you don't understand the rules, you don't understand why you're breaking them. And I don't like the whole concept, oh, I'm artistic, I'm creative. No. For example, a Picasso can still do, and you see some Van Gogh and stuff like that, he can still do photorealistic drawings. I went to the Van Gogh exhibition before. If you know Van Gogh, he's actually very abstract in a lot of his paintings. Yeah. But guess what? You can ask him to do a photorealistic sketch, and he has, and he can do it. So he understands the rules. He understands anatomy. He understands how shadows, lights, and all that work. And then he breaks the rules. And that's fine. But without understanding the rules, please don't go and break it yet. At least get the basics down first. And then if you want to subvert the rules, knock yourself out. But understand also why you're subverting the rules. Because if it's just, I'm just going to be difficult, it's not going to make a good story. Now, if you have a reason why you're doing stuff, you can build a case for it. But that's why you do what you do. Okay, I'm going to give you the basic act structures. Absolute basic act structures, true. And I'm going to use, this is much more the Western way of framing a story. The act 1, act 2, act 3. Jerome, if you know a lot of Chinese or Japanese cinema or Japanese writing, most Asian writing follow a 4-act structure, not a 3, where the conflict doesn't always get resolved. So if you watch a lot of Asian cinemas, there isn't always that big fight scene at the end. There is some of the excitement for it, but the resolution tends not to come out from there. But I'll give you the Western structure, which I actually really do like. But if any of the readers from this, or viewers, if you really enjoy how act structures work, research more. There's Shakespeare uses a 5-act structure. Guess what?
Oh, okay.
Because he knows what he's doing. So for example, Hamlet, if you follow through, is a typical 5-act structure. And there is the hero's journey structure, which is actually slightly different. Still follows about the Act 3 structure, but understand why these things are the way they are. Then then write to the rules first, and then once you understand and you love the rules, break them. Do whatever you like, but understand first. Okay, so Act 1 is usually what they call the setup or the catalyst phase, which the world is as it is, and you built this fantastic world with goblins or dragons or bionics or whatever, but that's the world. It's static. It's just the way it is, and it's status quo in that environment. Something has to change, because if something doesn't change, what are you doing? Nothing's happened. Yep, you need to disrupt. So you have the catalyst. Yep. The catalyst event is something that has to happen in Act 1, where it forces the protagonist or forces the world to adapt to something that's happened. Okay, so what could that be? Oh, guess what? Luke Skywalker finds out his dad is a Jedi. Well, that changes his world. He's suddenly, oh my God, I have a lightsaber. I can have fun. There's something beyond the Tatooine farms.
Yep.
And this is the really key part about this particular act structure. The hero needs to make a choice. It's really bad if the hero does not make a choice. If he's just pushed in and it just happens, people won't get the investment, because they have to make an active and personal choice. For example, using Star Wars, Luke chooses to leave Tatooine. If you watch it, it's a very minor choice, but Obi-Wan saying, "Will you come with me?" And Luke goes, "Yeah, sure, why not?" But he has to make a choice, because if the hero is forced or dragged along, it makes for a very bad investment. And again, this is a rule. Feel free to break it, but understand why it's there. Again, you can break the rules, but understand why because there's no investment. If a hero doesn't get deemed that he or she has free will, what's the point of the story? The story just becomes, oh, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and this happens.
Yep.
It doesn't invest the reader or the viewer into the story. Now comes the fun and game section, which basically at this point is whatever choice the hero has made. Luke, I'm going to be a Jedi. I'm going to do this. I'll start playing around with the lightsaber. Once he's made that choice, things change. And then he's learning about the choices and the ramifications from it. Usually in Act 2, the conflict gets brought in, which means, and in most movies and most, again, following this act structure, the hero needs to lose at this point. They have, and I'll use one of the reasons why the Star Wars, the 7, 8, 9 didn't work is because sometimes when you subvert expectations too much, you lose a really good bit of storytelling. But in the standard act structure in Act 2, the hero has to lose because it builds up the excitement and it builds the learning into Act 3. So in Act 3, now the hero is like, oh gosh, I've now realized something that I didn't realize before. And at that point, the hero then learns and he steps up. He's changed. He's not the man he used to be, or not the woman she used to be. He steps up and goes, I can now, with this altered worldview, I can now finish off the story. And then comes the final resolution on how the hero finishes the story. I'll give you the one example of where this was done badly in the Star Wars 7, 8, and 9. And again, it's open to opinion. It's just my opinion only. It was really the fight between Finn and Phasma, that story arc. And that story arc is actually really interesting because there's a story arc over several movies.
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember, Finn and Phasma have a couple of interactions. The first big interaction that they have is where Phasma was brought on stage. She is this absolute badass, shiny suit of armor. I'm better than the rest of the stormtroopers and all the rest of it. And then in number 2, I think was it 1 or 2? They had a fight in 2, and this is how it would have been. I think they had a fight in 1. I take it back. They had a fight in 1, which I think Phasma loses, and in 2, when after in the Star Destroyer, she loses again. Now, I think if you think about it logically, you've built up this hype around this really bad character. She's meant to be the nastiest of the stormtroopers, with his own set of armor. You hire Gwendolyn Christie, who's, if you watch Game of Thrones, she's an absolute beast. I love her. She's one of the best characters out there. How the arc should have worked would be really nice is Finn should not have been able to beat her, at least not until the end. He should have lost to her, and then as Finn learns, and because as a stormtrooper he was just a grunt, as a rebel fighter he gets to do everything. He gets to play around with lightsabers. He gets to do all the stuff he never used to do, and as he's learning, Phasma isn't learning. He is. And so he's meant to lose the first couple of fights, or he gets into a fight with Phasma, or you could do that whole thing when they fight, and then Finn has to escape because Phasma's got the upper hand, and he has to escape.
Yep.
No.
And then when that builds up towards the end, and then when you get to the final one where Phasma and him meet up for the final time, and it's now as equals, and they fight, and then that's exciting. And then when Finn finally beats Phasma at the end, that's the excitement. The viewers have invested in all this time. Again, using a lot of pop culture references. Infinity Endgame. Thanos had to win. He had to. Because if the stakes weren't there, it wouldn't have made Endgame and Infinity War the way they were. So they had to lose. Mm-hmm. And having them, and it's not a bad thing. It's, again, it's a standard story writing trope and stuff like what I'm doing here is I'm giving you the building blocks and the base rules. Again, like I said, understand the rules and why you break them. But if you have your hero win every single time and every single encounter, it makes for actually very boring storytelling. They have to lose, and they have to learn, because if people don't learn, it's not exciting, and they have to improve. Because a lot of the investment people have in characters is because characters change. And having characters who stay the same when they first start and be exactly the same at the end is a very, very boring character arc. Very, very boring plot and very, very boring story if they need to change. And it's actually really surprising when, again, if you actually watch and read certain things, like a lot of people who get paid a lot more money than me, and I'm a little bit jealous, they forget this. And you watch it and and a lot of times these movies or things absolutely bomb out, and they will always say, oh gosh, it's because this actor didn't act really well. And you just go, no. It was a really boring script. And when you guys try to tinker with it, and you don't know which, whether it's a studio exec or whatever it was, but the fact of the matter is, the story was boring. The character didn't learn anything from the beginning to the end. And without that growth, without that act structure, it's not that fun. I'll probably throw it to yourself a bit, Jerome, because I've got about 5 minutes left before I have to go off. And you can share whatever you like to share. But Shane
Yeah.
did tell me you were trying to do something. Create your own story. How far along are you? And can I ask, what's it about?
Yeah. Well, I've had it's not too far along. It's in bits and pieces. Basically, there's an alien invasion where the the aliens are shapeshifters, but they're also insectoid, an all-female insectoid race, basically,
Yeah.
and they can't be harmed by most conventional weapons, especially metallic
Yep.
objects. So they basically decimate the entire Earth, and
Yep.
they start. Much of the story basically is the protagonist and one of the alien invaders. The alien invader was his wife, basically,
Yep.
who pretended to be human at first. So they can go into different ranks in government and
Yep.
around the world, and they can invade it from there. So I'm just that far off, and much of the story will be explaining how the invasion happened and basically how everything was planned from the background, how's the war happening, how's the fight happening.
Okay. Can I
Yeah, of course.
ask a couple of interesting questions? And
Yeah.
sounds fascinating by your story. Where does the story start? Does it start after an invasion, or does it start pre-invasion?
It starts in the middle of the final invasion, basically, when the aliens are trying to decimate the entire Earth. So it starts in the middle of the story. There will be some sort of a quick flashback, and then it will basically come back to the invasion itself.
Okay. Next question. Why do the aliens want to decimate the Earth?
Well, basically, it's not that they wanted to destroy the Earth itself. They wanted the resources first,
Yep.
and since they're an all-female race, they want humans as cloning material, basically.
Okay.
They,
So they are genetically similar to humans then.
yeah, they assimilate different races within them, so and basically get their best. Get their best characteristics and
Yep.
integrate them into their society.
Okay. What resources do they want from Earth? And look, by the
Uh,
way,
yeah.
I'm actually going to have a point at the end of this. So just hang tight, because there's going to be a point at the end of this.
Yeah. So far, the resources that they want from Earth is mostly water, and since they don't care about the minerals at all, they're just trying to like uh, make more convert more of the Earth into water, basically.
Okay, so water is their primary resource that they're after.
Yeah.
That they're not after. Okay, and that's actually an interesting point, because Earth is actually one of the few places, at least in the solar system, where there's actually been identified water. So you could play a lot of that off. And if they were, and I'm just giving you some background of, look, if you were going to drop the story in, I would say they don't want decimation of the world. I think that's an interesting idea. But what they want is subjugation.
Yeah.
So
That's a
it's not
better term for it,
decimation means I salt the earth. That's the way I see decimation. It's a barren wasteland. I salt the earth. I get nothing grows. I get what I want. I'm out of them. What you're telling me, and it's actually really fascinating, is subjugation of the world. So, and then you've got a lot of questions in your world building, which you can now start answering. What happens to the female population on Earth? Do they kill every single female? Because if they only need, like say the male species, are women useful to them? I don't have the answers, by the way. I'm just posing it to you. Why? At what point? How do the aliens view females? Do they just get rid of them? Do they keep them? And so, and if you're saying that they shapeshift in and they're trying to establish control, and this is the thing, if you can shapeshift in, you don't need to come out guns blazing. You can establish governmental control.
Yeah.
You could have it halfway that, oh gosh, the president, she's a shapeshifter. And then you got to go, okay, what's the population ratio? Are shapeshifters less or more? And I actually would see as much more a very interesting take that they're in the midst of all this confusion. So the idea of like, if you could shapeshift, or you come in and you're after material, they would try to come in very coyly. You can come in and go, you know what? I'll sneak in. I can establish government. I can kill the president and become the president.
Yeah,
And then I have all the power. And so I don't need an invasion force. There's absolutely no reason. And then you can open up that whole storytelling. What happens is there a telltale sign? And by the way, I don't know all the rules. Is there a telltale sign that someone's a shapeshifter or not a shapeshifter? Is there something that gives it away? Does the hero find that out? And that the hero with that alien wife, are there betrayers within the invasion race? But if the invasion was coming, why would they bring somebody who's betraying them? And then you open what's changed. And the whole idea about, and again, this is a bit more into the world building part, the whole idea of storytelling is then you start going, okay, I've now posed all these questions to you.
Mm-hmm.
What plot can you make out of it? How did it discover? I don't have the answer, by the way. How did they discover there's a shapeshifter? Are they out in the open? Are they not out in the open? What happens? Are there more shapeshifters in power than they're not? What happens if you go to the president and the president says to do this and you believe it's a shapeshifter? Do you shoot the president? What happens in the case where he just went crazy? And then you start another conflict because the general goes, you know what? You're a shapeshifter. Boom. Oh gosh, I made a mistake. Yeah. How do I cover this mistake up? And then you've got the world in that perpetual confusion, that chaos. If I was a shapeshifter, I'll be going, man, this is too easy. How about I just ship the water off here? Because, and you can even play a lot of like world scenarios. Have you heard of what's happening with Nestle in California?
I'm not 100% well informed. Yeah.
Okay. If you get bored, Google Nestle California water. So the whole idea behind it is Nestle, the Nestle, the company, basically has a legal contract which allows them to take water out from California. The problem is California is currently in a drought. Yeah. But because they have an ironclad contract, they basically said, screw this. I don't care if people in California don't have access to water. I still got my quota. I'm going to take it all, bottle it up and sell it. So are aliens like that? Are aliens the next Nestle? There's such a lot of real world and a lot of historical context you can give behind it. Maybe the aliens have always been here. And then as you start digging into the past, the invasion force, you're going, oh, wait a minute. Maybe Cleopatra was one of them. I don't know. Maybe Mary Queen of Scots was one. Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And it opens that all up, that historical world building. Anyway, I think I've talked way too much. Look, by the way, Jerome, I hope this helps. Like,
yeah, of course, yeah. You got me thinking. Actually,
you have a really strong idea, but you can see as you world build and you start digging. Like I start asking questions, you start just digging slightly below the surface of your questions. Mm-hmm. You're going, oh gosh, you could have in your story an entire section on how Queen Elizabeth, from a shapeshifter, took power and what she's doing in that power. That's our entire story, just right there. Just that one concept, based in your world. And the more you dig, man, you will have plots. Just from what you've told me, you will have plots coming out left, right. I envy you, but I wouldn't want to be you because, man, you can get stuck on plots a lot.
Exactly.
Okay. Look, Shane, I've talked too much. I've got 5 more minutes. I know Zach's going to come on, so I'm happy to drop. But any last questions, any last things before I jump off?
Yeah, I wanted to share your links, but I wanted to make sure I was sharing the right ones. Yep. So the Wordsmith one, is that a current or?
Oh, they're both. They're both in pre-launch. So
They're both in pre-launch. Okay.
I'm very much in the Kickstarter pre-launch thing, which is basically before I launch a project, I always make it a point to get the pre-launch up, get a bit of hype, get a bit of excitement. Oh, look, issue 3 is coming or issue 4 is coming. So anybody in the chat, anybody that's out there, if you have a Kickstarter account, I would really appreciate you if you could click on the link, and I really would appreciate if you could hit that notify button so that you'll know when both Kickstarters go live. Yeah, and I
did
really
quite a while ago. I just wasn't sure if one of them had started without me knowing. That's all, because I haven't been keeping up to date with my emails.
No, it's both in pre-launch, and to be fair, I've got a lot more work I still need to do on them. But it's I'm always a big advocate. Get your pre-launch page up as quickly as possible so that you can start building some hype around your work. And so when the main thing about Kickstarters is you want a strong day one. And the only way to get a really strong day one is to have a lot of people know about what's happening on day one before it happens.
True.
Okay, look, I'm happy to jump off now, but look, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was very informative. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more from you.
More than welcome to. So I'm going to jump. Thank you so much. Oh, is Zach on the back room?
Yeah, Zach's in the green room. Yep.
Bring him up. I'll stop sharing. Bring him up. I want to say hi before I go.
Okay, cool. And here's Zach.
Hello. Hey.
Hey, Zach.
The first time look, we've talked before, but I've never seen you before. So nice to meet you face to face, as it were.
Yeah, that was a good chat.
Oh God, look, I have read Bronwyn, and it's I love your artwork. I really do.
It's not terrible.
I hope it gives you ideas, by the way, because you've built your world around her, but there's so much more you could explore. Like, I think you've touched the tip. That's like, just imagine you start digging around a bit more. You can go, man, the sky's the limit.
I had an original 1 to 3, which are in reprints at the moment because everyone wants them again. Yay me! But it's why I did the further adventures, and it's set like a anthology sort of setting, so I could tell more stories without affecting the main plot so much, kind of thing. So that's an 8-part kind of thing of like where I explore the Celtic myths and legends and throw her in the middle of it and stuff.
Yep. Oh, that's awesome. Like, you're taking your own spin on those myths and stuff, so it's fantastic. Look, I just want to say hi because I'm out skis, but look, thank you very much, Jerome and Shane, for having me. And
thank you very much, Steve.
Thanks, Stephen.
Okay, see you guys.
See you later.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
Hey, Zach.
Tired, but I'm always tired.
You're always tired.
Yeah, you're
Nothing new there.
And yet I don't sleep.
Sleeping's weak.
Yeah.
So, how you been?
I'm currently
busy.
I've currently finished up uni, so it's back to drawing Bronwyn and Vivian.
So, Vivian.
Keep them busy.
Good stuff.
Have a nice little
Nice.
sneaky
I'll
peek.
boost you up. Oh, very nice.
So,
You're still beautiful. Yeah.
thanks. But that issue's going to be my first digital colored one. I'm going to let a colorist have a crack at it.
Oh, yes. I remember you saying something about that. That's really cool. Just for something different?
More, I noticed that I could draw like 9 pages almost in 3 days if I didn't color them.
You didn't color them, yes.
Yeah.
It's all about
so-
efficiency. Efficiency. I like it.
Yeah. So I've got Dana Lawson doing it.
Oh, yep, cool. She did one of the coloring for Peter Lawson's
Thank you,
picture
Rob.
in the calendar.
Yep. That's why I wanted to get her. She did a really good coloring job on that.
Oh yeah, she did an awesome job. So so you're starting back on Bronwyn. So where is Bronwyn at the moment? So like as in you've had the 3 original issues, and you've got the further it's the further adventures. I'm getting this right, aren't I?
So, Further Adventures 1,
Yeah.
and then there's a lot of different covers for that one, but that was the main one. And then I did a crossover with Matt Kime for The Wrath of the Cursed.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah. So the crossover is set after the original 1 to 3, and then the Further Adventures is set before the original 1 to 3.
Oh,
So
I
in the
didn't realize that.
reprints, there's a page now that tells you how to read it.
Oh, nice.
This is getting confusing.
So you have a timeline page by all of itself.
Pardon?
Like Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, because there's timeline that in Further Adventures #1, there's a story that takes place 2,000 years before she's even born. That's part of the main storyline. So each little chapter is dated. So eventually, when it's in a trade, it'll be in one book in proper order.
Oh, sweet. Where's the fun in that? Have it all over the shop.
I need you to have all 20 issues in a pile that you can jump to. No, it's
nice.
Yeah, so I'm currently finishing up #2 of the Further Adventures.
Yep,
which has already gone through a Kickstarter. So I'm hoping that's done by end of next week, so I can letter and print and all that jazz. And then I'll be doing a Kickstarter for a sketchbook.
Oh, cool.
Oh.
So it'll be essentially I take 20 artists out of the industry who really influenced me one way or another. Cover swipe their work, bend it to a Bronwyn cover, and talk about like what I learned from that cover, what I learned from them as a whole. Just explain my whole artistic take in comics.
Oh, wow, that's really cool.
Kind of cool sketchbook.
Any ideas? Would I be pushing my luck by saying any ideas when that will be happening?
August.
August.
The Kickstarter is August 3rd.
Nice.
On my birthday. So everyone should be nice. And pledge.
Everyone should be nice and pledge. I like it. I like that's a good one. I'll have to remember to make sure one of the ComX ones are on my birthday just to milk that sucker.
It's my birthday. Although,
it's my birthday, pledge.
Next year, when we do an issue, we could just make sure it falls on ComX Studio's birthday. And it could be a birthday issue.
Birthday issue, I like it.
But yeah. And then there's issue 4 of the main line, which I completely forgot I had done for a year. Whoops.
Interesting story.
What?
I injured my foot and I was on codeine, and it made me really... Codeine knocks me out for some reason. I don't know why. And I completely forgot that it was on my computer. So it's set on my hard drive for like a year.
That's impressive.
Done. It's lettered and everything.
I need to get me something that I'm allergic to and see if it can get me to do more work.
Yeah,
cool. So Jerome.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying, Zach?
No. I'm just saying that's pretty much where Bronwyn is. And then
cool.
Vivian is a couple panels off from the first part being done.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already mapped out the second part.
Cool. And that couple of panels are random because you like to, if I remember correctly,
Yeah, I
you like
jump.
to do this, jump from this page
I
to that
jump
page.
around pages. I don't typically draw a full page, so it's a couple
Nice.
bits and pieces through pages.
Sweet.
Hmm.
So, Jerome, you got anything you want to ask Zach?
Yeah. Well, for a few things. So, before we
I'm still
we've
listening.
been talking about we've been talking about Bronwyn, and we've asked this from you a lot of times. But can you tell the audience about Bronwyn and what is it about, and to those who
Oh, yeah.
don't know about it so far?
Yeah, good question. I should have said that.
Okay, if you think of it this way, it's Xena meets Hellboy in a way. She
In a way.
doesn't do the acrobatics or have the dark past like Xena. It's just easier to describe chick with a sword that way. And then the ancient kind of setting, and then Hellboy he's thrown into different myths and legends mixed with his own overall plot.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I describe it.
No, that makes sense.
She's a Celtic warrior, and it's tied into actual history. So actual historical events are referenced, hence the dates for each story. So you can kind of pick where you are in history at that point, just to add to the world a little bit.
Nice.
Ooh. And since it's tied up to history, then how do you build your story's lore? How do you isolate it from? Do you isolate it from things that are happening in real history, or do you mix it with historical events?
It's mixed with historical events. So her father was Vercingetorix, who fought Julius Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
When she was 10, Julius Caesar invaded Gaul, and there was the Battle of Alesia. So she was 10 when that happened. And after that, she got sent to live with the god, like the Tunathadidan, which is like the Celtic gods.
Yep.
And so then I dropped little references of history. Like in the new issue, it references Caesar's assassination.
Ooh.
So
Cool.
it just helps, I think, ground. It's something Buffy did. I think, like when they put her in high school, and it was like they reference like the high school shootings and stuff. It pulls all that fantasy back down a little bit and regrounds the audience, kind of. So it's kind of what I'm kind of doing.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yep. And in video games, that should be the equivalent of Assassin's Creed, I guess. So
yeah.
So how do you what's this? How do you make your mythical historical fiction, especially yours, it's Celtic, is very less represented. So how do you make it more interesting for the average reader?
I kind of pick the less intense Celtic stories, kind of thing, and the main overall story arc that Bronwyn's tied up into is when Lugh fought Balor in the Fomorian War. So that story arc is the main kind of beat. So Bronwyn's the aftermath of that war.
Ooh.
So there's that, and then I pick random figures out of it. It's what Xena did. They cherry pick through history, and then just dump it in there and just tied it all together. But I'm kind of picking some cool bits, like monsters and stuff out of it too. So there's the occasional like monster of the week story, as well as like the long running story arc. But even the monster of the week sort of episodes make reference to like a major player from the main story will pop up and drop a little bit of info or stuff like that.
Nice.
I write very TV
X-Files.
Yeah, I think I think TV episode structure when I write stuff.
Yeah.
If that makes
Yeah,
sense. Like,
yeah,
No, that makes sense.
I don't know.
which is
It
easy
just
to
sounds
follow.
weird.
Yeah.
Mm.
So,
But I do try and
and-
make it easy, like because Celtic stuff isn't as known as like Rome or Greek.
Yeah.
Roman or the Greek myths. The
Yeah.
Celtic stuff, you kind of have to, I think, put it plain enough, and then you thread it through, and hopefully someone actually goes and looks up like, what's a Fomorian, or who's Belor, or who's Lou.
yeah,
Yeah,
which-
maybe look it up.
Yeah, and it did actually, and when I read further adventures initially, my Celtic was rusty, so you actually made me reread my Celtic history and Celtic mythology.
That's good. But yeah,
Always
it
fun.
doesn't get used enough, which is sad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's when you
because-
think about it.
There's a lot of interesting stories.
Yeah, it's a very
Well,
rich history.
Funny because a lot of it is rewritten into Roman law with different characters. A lot of it's into the Bible that was rewritten when the Christian monks came.
Oh,
So,
really?
David and Goliath is Lou and Belor, because in the
Oh.
proper law, Lou fought Belor with a slingshot.
Ah, interesting.
Oh. I never made
Yeah,
that
that's really
connection.
cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a few docos that show you all the pagan stuff that's been integrated into Christianity.
Yep.
So if you know that side of things, you're like, okay, no worries.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did a ton of Celtic research to do this because I want to get as much of it right as possible.
Yep. And yeah,
Good
it's
stuff.
because it's most of my readings were from the Tuatha and the story about Balor. So and most of the stories are just about Boudica. They usually concentrate around that time period. So sorry about that. Well,
Okay.
well, yeah. When you said you're starting number 4, right now, for Bronwyn.
Number 4 is there's maybe 1 or 2 more panels.
Mhm.
I just need to double check the issue because it was a year ago, so there might be something I want to redraw. But that's almost, I'm pretty sure 100% done. And Further Adventures number 2, I've got maybe 5 or 6 pages and a few panels here and there to finish.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, how do you start your stories? How do you make how do you start an issue? Do you like start with you have a set of characters that you want in it and make this the story around it? Do you have a specific plot you already have in mind? Can you tell us about it?
I kind of focus on, I know the ending of Bronwyn, so I know she has to get there. I know how Ethlyn, who is a real Celtic figure, she's the daughter of Belor.
Okay.
I know what needs to happen to her, and in Further Adventures, it's added a new character called Whistler, and I know where he's going. So I think it's when you do that, it's best to understand where your characters start and what beats you want them to hit, because that will help you write the story. And then I just have a look through my book of Celtic myths or on the net and find like a monster of the week, put them in a situation, how that can kind of flow into the storyline.
Oh, yeah, cool.
I don't write scripts. I just thumbnail my whole story out.
Which works
And then,
actually. Yeah.
Then I work out dialogue when the art's done, and I go to the lettering process.
Interesting
I kind
technique.
of have an idea of what who Bronwyn's character is, so that's easier writing dialogue for her. But
makes
Whistler, I'm still figuring it out a little bit. Ethlyn, she just wants Daddy's throne that was taken away from her. So.
Makes it easy.
Well, Ethlyn's story is still following. Because originally Belor killed off all her kids because he viewed his grandchildren as a threat to the throne. Except, again, Christian Bible, she sends Lou away, not down a river, but a sea god adopts him, I think, from memory, and he gets raised, brought up, and then he winds up killing Belor anyway. So it's the aftermath of that all happening to Ethlyn, because then after that, Lou's pronounced king of the Fomorians and the Tenathity Dan. So she loses her throne, which technically should be hers, but because she's the woman, she's not allowed to have a throne. And yeah, so she wants her throne.
Oh, yeah, cool. So you've got that overarching story going on.
They all have an overarching story, and I kind of like twine it together and then throw the Celtic myths in there just to flesh out the Celtic world.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And how okay, so how do you
So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
well, well, you actually did. I mean, every and not I always it actually cleared the what's this myth in my mind that everyone scripts. So
Oh no, I don't say. If I was to give, say you a script to draw, I would write you a script. It's because in my head I know what I need, so I just jump that step, and I just go straight to thumbnailing it out.
Oh, well,
So if I was to give it to someone else, I would give them a script, or at least a basic, like I need this, this, and this to happen. Run wild.
The Stan Lee approach.
Yeah. Then take credit for it all.
Well, so let's go to the nitty gritty. How do you work on the comics day to day? I mean, how do you sit down on and make a lot of pages all at once, or when are you the type who does things when they feel like it? You know.
No, I draw every day.
Oh, you draw every day. Okay.
A bit like a Stephen King with his writing, always a certain amount each day. Is it like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, cool.
I was drawing Bronwyn while watching, so I'm always drawing.
Nice.
I've always drawn, so it's just a force of habit at this point. But
that's a good thing. That's how you get better and better and better. That's how you improve.
Because there's days if I don't draw, the next day I notice I'm like, this looks shit. But you lose it kind of if you don't draw for a while. You'll notice that it's harder to get back into it. So that day's drawing, you're like relearning kind of.
No, that makes sense. I stopped drawing for years, and I can't draw like I used to. I just can't, because it's whatever skill I had then is gone.
So it comes back pretty quick, but it's your days aren't as productive because it's I can't get this like face right, but I could get it right 2 days ago. So
that makes sense.
For me personally, that's it.
Oh yeah, it's a matter of consistency.
Yeah, but I pretty much I will draw at least a panel a day, sometimes pages.
But, cool. Random panels, apparently.
Like I loosely pencil out a whole page and then I cherry pick. Like if I loosely pencil out like 4 pages of Bronwyn in a fight, I'll do all the panels with her face in it, because that way I'm in the mindset of drawing her face, and that way her face is more consistent because I drew all of it in one hit. And then the next day I'll draw hands because I can focus on all the shots with hands. I don't know. It's the way I work.
Well, if it works for you.
Yeah, of course. It always looks good when I give it a look. So at least something's working. so if that's the case, it seems that you're the meticulous type. Well, and you do the entire comics by your and you do the entire comics by yourself. But are there any skill that you're looking to improve further right now that can help your comic book that you think you're still doing bad at?
Lettering. I suck at lettering. I get by on lettering. So I might, when money picks up, I'll get a letterer for that. I'm not Dave Dye. I can't hand letter. That just hurts my head thinking that he hands letters to everything. That's still hurts my head. And then eventually I want to get to a point where I have trust issues with handing Bronwyn out, but I do want to get to a point where I can start employing people to like speed the timeline up to get everything out. But right now I'm a bit like getting a colorist to do it. It's like, okay, baby steps. But I'm sure most creators are like that with their characters. It's because you think you're the only one who can. Like, I have no problem getting a variant cover artist. I'm like, she looks cool, but the sequential art, the way that she's drawn in that, I'm really picky on, kind of thing.
Protective.
Well, it's your world, you know.
Actually, protective is probably a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, it's your world and it's your lore. So how you see it is how you do it. You know. Well, let's talk about Vivian Jones. Tell us the design behind. How did you decide on the design behind Vivian Jones?
Good question. I don't know this.
Jokingly, it's a smoking giraffe, and I apologize to Happy Harold in advance.
I thought that was just a running joke. I didn't think that was an actual intentional thing.
No, it's because all the detective noir photos and stuff I saw, they're always smoking. I'm like, okay, so it's just a trope used in like the detective kind of noir setting.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Him being a giraffe is, I want to draw something different than people because Bronwyn is people heavy.
Yeah.
So it's more of like even the time period jump and stuff. So it's like, I don't want to get comfortable just doing fantasy and like ancient Roman stuff.
Yep.
So it's more of like a little bit of a expanding my skill set. But the giraffes, I just like giraffes. I like detective stories. So
That's a good reason.
Vivian came from my mom's dad. That was his name. So,
Oh, yeah.
And he's
sorry.
an.
I don't even know what I was going to say now.
sorry, my dog's
It just went. It just.
about.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I did have a question, but it's gone.
Okay.
I'm gonna lie.
Okay. Then let me cover. So, what's this? He's an occult detective, right? Like, what? Are you free to say what type of occult things he checks, or is it is it your own lore, or is it based on something else?
This one continues a bit of the Irish lore. There's a reference to like Morgan Le Fay and
Arthurian.
one of her descendants is in it. That's Nicola Le Fay. Nicola is named after Nicola Scott, and she knows and she likes it. The character design, which is a bonus. But there's still that stuff. This arc in itself is witches.
Yep.
So it's exploring witchcraft. And there's also another witch in there from a different set of mythology. But you're going to have to read to find out what one.
Oh, I like that. You have to read to find out. Nice.
She's getting a lot of marketing tips from Zach.
My marketing class at uni paid off.
But mine does. I'm just starting mine.
I only had to do one subject in it, and I'm like, this is hurting my head. Because essentially it was beginners 101 to it, so they're teaching like all the cliches of like men like cars, women like makeup. I'm like, it's stereotyping, but that's how they're teaching you the marketing things. I'm like, no. So it kind of hurt my head that way. So
Yeah, it would.
I
would do that subject
about cars.
That's marketing from the 60s.
So, yeah, I still learnt bits and pieces. That what I found was the way that the uni did it, which is weird because the textbook was even 2020. I'm like, wow, we're still taught stereotype marketing. Interesting. But yeah, so.
Well,
I'm a bit like there that was talking about cherry picking earlier.
So, did you do world building for Vivian, or do you have the entire world in your head ready?
For
yeah,
Vivian Jones is 12 parts, but outside publication it's really 4 issues. So for those 4 issues, I know what's happening. That's it. So I don't know if I'll continue with Vivian Jones or not after.
Okay. Well, just out of curiosity, with Vivian Jones, is it kind of set in a time period similar to where there's actual humans, or have you just made up your whole set of rules to where they are? Or I'm going by their clothes. I would say they're like what the 1920s?
It's 1920s. It's
the
1920s. It's essentially, instead of humans with human heads, it's humans with giraffe heads.
Yeah,
that's so think the Egyptian god kind of thing, so like the human bodies and the animal heads.
Okay.
But everyone's a giraffe. There's no other random
that's
animal.
default for the world, right? Like everyone was giraffe from the start. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yep.
That's what I was just trying to understand, was like if it was a different world.
No, you're not going to see a random human pop up.
Oh, no, I meant as in, was it a different world, or was it just our world with giraffe heads?
Our world with just people with giraffes. It's just something a bit different.
Yeah, it is a bit different.
Well, if what was the challenge that you had with? Did you have any challenges that you think when you were developing Vivian Jones? Was there anything that you felt you're having a hard time working on?
Him himself, getting the body proportions right, because it's not a normal head. So you learn like a head's this, and then you go 1, and then that's like the breast line, and then the belly button line, and the crotch line. Like you just go down like that. So you kind of have to draw a human head, do the body, and then alter the human head to a giraffe.
Nice.
So,
well, I was going to say, all the other artists who gave it a go did a pretty good job as well, I must say.
So, and then it's the neck ratio of like how long do you make his neck. So,
well, everyone seems to do that differently, I noticed.
Yeah, I just double a human's neck.
Oh yeah,
so it's
cool.
But like it's a giraffe kind of thing. But I wouldn't go buy an action figure and just like cut a giraffe's head off and glue it on just so I have like a reference point. That'll help me a lot.
Nice.
Well, if you said that you're having a hard time letting others work on your especially on Bronwyn, but if there's someone, if there's any creator, is there any creator that whether it's here in Australia or in the US that you think you'd be okay working on Bronwyn? Anyone? Who is it?
I think I know. I think I know.
Oh, then tell me about it.
There's a few people who have done covers. Like, I would let Rob have a crack at her. I think that would be a fun.
That would be fun, actually. Yeah.
Daniel Watts did a really cool cover. He drew her really well. I like everyone's cover. In industry, I would want to actually see Nicola Scott Trier, but
I was right.
Adam Hughes, and then for the sake of it, Mike Mignola. I reckon he'll draw really cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
So it would be interesting to see. So I really like Hellboy, but Mike Mignola's style is you either love it or you hate it. I feel.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, especially with the connection with how Bronwyn is kind of like the whole Hellboy and everything like that. Yeah,
yeah,
with
like
the whole myth going through
his
different
world
myths and
building.
legends.
Yeah, like his world building is insane. Like, I've read all of Hellboy, most of the BPRD, all of Witchfinder. I think there's one or two other spin-offs I've read, but they all flow together. I'm like, how many corkboards do you have pinned up with strings going to this and to that? But yeah, so he's good for world building. If you want to look at McNaull for anything, his world building is impressive.
Yep.
But
well, Zach, is there any easy way for people to find Bronwyn?
probably on my Facebook page.
Your Facebook page? Yep.
And,
So just look for Zach George.
hang on, I'll dump it in chat for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Makes it even easier for me.
Then if you search what Zach drew comics on Instagram as well, that's there as well.
I should have. That's shocking. I should have said that anyway. I should know that. My brain's not working.
You should.
Yeah, I should.
And then she's in a few stores around Australia. So
Oh, that's awesome.
that's cool.
A few comic stores. Check out your comic store and ask for Bronwyn. Ask for Bronwyn.
But
If they haven't got it, get it in.
But the pre-orders, not pre-orders, the reprints go to the printer tomorrow. So I should
cool.
have them by next week. And then Kickstarter the week after that, issue 2 of Further Adventures. And then after that, issue 4. And then get my ass into gear for the sketchbook.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that, actually. That'll be really interesting doing the whole, what do you call it again? Where you take the art from another...
It's cover swipes.
Cover swipe, that's it.
Yeah. But it's cool.
I've actually learned all these new terms.
It's interesting because you learn a lot from doing them. Whether it's like you like that coloring, so you try and figure out how they did it, or the lighting in that, you figure out how they did it by redrawing it.
Yeah.
So it's more drawing exercises why I do them. They do sell well. Don't get me wrong. Especially if you do the right cover swipe, like that Spider-Man jumping forward. I feel like everyone's done that one.
Yeah.
But it's more of a learning thing for me.
No, that makes total sense.
You're drawn to the cover for a reason. So if you figure out why you like it, and then you adapt that lighting, because you obviously like that lighting or that coloring, or so. And
That makes sense.
I flat out credit. I will even tweet them on Twitter and be like, "Look, I stole your cover."
That's the best way to do it.
I don't know. It's a few of them have responded and said it's great and retweeted it. So they obviously don't care. In a way,
No.
like I'm not mass producing it and making millions on it. So
No.
and all that is oh wow, people like my work.
Yeah, well, that's how I think of it. They would view it as a fan thing.
I think
well,
if you do them, you have to just credit them. That's it.
oh yeah, that makes the most
give them
sense.
credit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm just going to do a little bit of plug for all of us. And for Vivian Jones, go to this link to get the pre-launch page. Vivian Jones, one of the stories on ComX Presents. So that's my little plug. Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on tonight, Zach. It was a real pleasure talking to you. You want to
But these
put
are
some
available
pictures up?
if you want to get them. These right now are in stock.
Ooh.
And the best place to go is to your Zach
Facebook.
Drew
Facebook
Comics
page.
on Facebook.
Yeah. Look, you
Yeah,
can get a
cool.
pretty sticker on the back.
Oh, nice.
And then if you were interested in any of the stuff coming out, just message me and I can put your name down.
Yep. Cool. So yeah, if you want to get in contact with Zach, just go to that Facebook page that I posted there. It's a What Zach Drew Comics at Instagram and at Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Zach. You have a great night. It was a real
You
pleasure
too.
talking to you.
Thank
And
you for having me.
Thanks, Zach.
It was our pleasure. Have a great night.
You too. Catch you.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night, Zach.
Bye.
Well, that was two very interesting guests.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun. And we've
Very.
run over time because of it. We had a lot to talk about. So, yeah. So, what we'll do now is we're trying to start this new tradition where we review some comics. And we're going to do that with the help of Brad Daniels, to be exact, from Edge Comics. I will bring him up if he's ready. If he's not, I'll bring him up anyway.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Hey, Brad, how are you?
Hey, Brad.
How you enjoying
great.
lockdown?
Yeah, it's great being alive in Brisbane right now.
Yes.
Lockdown, great. It doesn't change my life at all. I rarely have to house, so it's all good. I just have to wear a mask when I go out.
Yeah, that's the only difference to me as well. I work from
How you
home.
guys going?
I'm going well. How about you, Jerome?
Doing well. Doing well.
Nice.
Having a bit of fun there with Stephen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, great show so far. Want to talk about some comics?
Yeah, let's talk about some
Yeah, let's
comics.
do that. Yeah.
We won't talk about the ones I've read. We'll talk about the ones you've read, Brad.
Why is that? Why is that, Shay? Why don't we
No
want to talk
particular
about
reason.
the ones you read?
I just thought it'd be more interesting
Oh,
talking about
really?
the ones you've read.
Okay, interesting. Well, I've got a little pile here, so not a big lot today, but I got some. Okay, so this is from
Yeah, that's cool.
what was it? It was a week and a half ago. I was down in Sydney for Supernova Comic Convention. I think I mentioned that last week.
Yep.
Yep, you
One
did.
of the things I picked up was this Taxi Cop.
Taxi. Oh.
It's an ash can. It's like a preview thing. This was done by. Oh, let me see. Can I find the guy's name? I should have brought my glasses.
Yeah, I've had the same problem with looking at the screen. I'm slowly losing my focus on the screen, and tonight it's really showing.
TJ McCallum is the man responsible. TJ.
Yeah, nice.
Now this is like the artwork in this is very cool. I found it very reminiscent of Masasume Shiro, the guy who does Ghost in the Shell, Appleseed, and the like.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's lots of. Let me see if I can find a. So you got your insectoid type robots.
Oh,
You
yeah,
got
cool.
like a lot of really good like cartoony acting by all the drawings. So loving the work that he does here. This is just an ashcan preview, so it's not complete. There's pages where like you have just no dialogue put in there. There's just word balloons. But I was very impressed with the level of artwork that this TJ's got going on.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
It looks really cool. So I look forward to finding out. Well, look forward to seeing the final product. But this was a good little sampler. You know, It's like he was sharing with another fella who I'll get onto in a minute, sharing a booth, and he didn't have anything except this, but this is good. You know,
Yeah, it looks
$5 for a preview. And like I said, like great acting, like great little cartoony like characters there. And I'm not sure why you have to drive a taxi to be a constable. Well, not all the words are there, but so that's a taste of the future. Now, let's move on to something else.
Is this who was sharing the booth or a different one?
This is from a different chat. I'm just grabbing them as they're on the pile here.
Oh, yep.
So, that's okay. No, logically, I would go to the next guy who was in the same booth, but no. Why would I do it that way when I can show
Keep
you?
it interesting.
Pizza Dude, the Supreme
Nice.
Pizza Dude.
Supreme.
Now-
Even better.
That's very cheesy.
Against the invisible enemy. I think we know who he's dealing with there. Now, these were a lovely couple who were next to me at the Sydney AusCon pop-up earlier this year.
Oh, yeah.
And lots of cool, like retro 80s style, colourful, good stuff. This is just like a little mini brought out because of COVID, of course.
Yeah.
Now, does anyone remember Pizza Man? Which
It
was
rings a
an Aussie
bell, but I
comic
can't
from the
quite
90s.
place why I know it. But I
Well,
do know the name.
There was an Aussie comic went out to the newsagents in the 90s called Pizza Man. It was a superhero spoof. I never read it. I'm sure it was great. I'm probably insulting someone's like life work right now, but it didn't appeal to me. But this is just delightful. Just like there's nothing like groundbreaking about it. But if you like having a little bit of a fun thing, like it's like what he does. Basically, it just goes through what he does in during COVID isolation. You know.
Wash your hands there, Pizza Man. I like it. Pizza Dude,
Yeah,
sorry.
he grows a beard. Of course, as everyone
As
does.
you do.
Yeah.
Pizza Dude
but
beard.
yeah, and the back page tells you how to wash your hands in case you don't know how.
Oh, that's classic.
Did you get from the health department's PSA?
No, this is just this lovely fellow. I think it was John is his name.
It's
Let me
cute.
just check this out here. Yeah, John DeBono Cullen. And as a bonus, he and his lovely wife gave me a lift back to my hotel after the convention. So highest possible marks for the Supreme
Excellent.
Pizza Dude.
Supreme
Great stuff.
Pizza Dude.
Check it out.
And
I
Lee's
should
just
actually
said-
probably. Oh, Lee just says she has he says he has
P.
2 issues.
Two
P.
issues of what,
Sorry,
Lee?
Lee.
Tell us which one. Of Pizza Dude or Pizza Man?
Maybe Pizza Man.
Maybe he's one of each.
One of each. 2 issues. Mind blown.
Rightio. So I should
I think
probably I'll put down I'll send through the contact details for everyone for each of these at the end when we go through all this.
Oh,
Still waiting to hear.
Actually, that's a really good point because we turn these shows into articles. Well, I love to say we, but really it's Jerome. Take some credit that isn't mine.
Doing the Stan Lee.
That's it.
And yeah, so
And
Jerome turned this into an
Celtic.
article. So if you can share the details of where we can get these or get in contact with these people, Jerome can put that at the end of the article. That'll be awesome.
Will do. No problems at all. I'll do that after we have a look. Now we'll go back to the guy who was sharing with JK, whatever his name was. TJ.
TJ.
I'm great with names. This is John Hanna, another John.
Nice.
Okay. You Can't Kill Us. This is like a sci-fi.
Looks like Kira.
Yeah, it's like it's set in outer space on a space station. It's very politically charged. It's not like a brainless sort of like, shoot the bad guy sort of thing. It's all about it's set in a future where everyone has sold their bodies to finance lifestyles. So there's a new story
That's interesting.
oxygen is going up. The breathing tax is going up 32%, and people are upset by saying, "Oh, we had to sell our lungs ages ago. Only the rich people can afford to breathe anyway." So that's the sort of dystopia you're looking at with this.
Oh,
That sounds really cool.
that's
and
a
It's
good
actually
concept.
really well done. It follows this lone dude. I'm not sure whether he's like deserted from the army or he's just like got a very unusual way or like of getting onto the space station, but starts with a long like wordless sequence, and then we get to meet him and find out a lot more about the world. Very socially relevant. The artwork, now this is John's style, which is sort of like a anime-esque, but he has his
Very
own
anime,
particular thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a
And I found this
slightly different.
I was really surprised when I read this. I think the story is good and the storytelling with the art is good as well. So I know he's got like 3 issues of this out. I'm looking forward to picking up the others to find out where it goes.
You'll have to chase that. It sounds like a really cool concept.
And the art is reminiscent of Mega Man, the Mega Man series.
Yeah, it's definitely got that Mega Man vibe, but it's more. He says in his like little afterwards that he's inspired by Cyberpunk, William Gibson, and all that.
Oh,
So it's a very cyberpunk type of story.
Yep.
And I can't help but feel some more Masasu Shiro vibes with that one. More Ghost in the Shell sort of stuff.
Yep.
So, but very good, very good. Top marks. Love it. Throw it away. Okay. Next up, we got Fox and Hound. Have you guys read this?
Oh yes, I've got
Have you
Fox
heard-
and Hound 1, 2, and 3.
Awesome.
1, 2, and 3. This is
They're
issue
crap.
2.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me
A
just see.
little risque.
It's a little risque.
Oh,
Here's
you've
the
got
cover.
a risque cover. Okay, yes, nice.
Yeah. That's
cover
why
that
it's
needs
come
to be
in a brown
held.
paper bag.
Yeah.
I don't think I've got that cover.
Well, that's like, let's leave it at that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a sexy girl adventure story. Every single everything they say is a double entendre, as far as I can tell. If that sounds appealing to you, then you will enjoy it. I mean, now let me see. Now this is, let me get the credits here. Created by N.S. Kane.
N.S. Kane, yeah.
And
Good friend of the show.
and John Rhodes. Yeah. I don't know. It's obviously not for kids.
Oh no.
No.
It's a very.
I don't think
it's a
anything
very
that
well-
NS Kane does is for
Yeah.
kids.
When you see Ennis Kane, the name Ennis Kane on something, it's likely not for kids.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it, the presentation is beautiful. The writing is good. I still don't. The characters just feel a little shallow to me. But I'm waiting to read more. You know, it's very well done. I don't think it's my cup of tea, which is disappointing because I love looking at boobies. But no, I'll get. So I got issue 2. I'm gonna grab issue 3 and see if it clicks for me then.
Yep.
So
And they've got a
There's the back cover there.
Oh, yep, more covering. You've definitely got different covers than me. Mine are quite happily displayed.
Oh, really? Well,
Yes.
mine are not. So yeah, if you want a saucy adventure with lots of action, and like so much double entendre going on, and spicy tales. That's it. Ooh, spicy! Ouch, ouch! Burns my fingers. Ouchie! What have I got left? Oh yeah, this is I got one last one for the night. And this is full disclosure. This is actually my neighbor and friend.
Oh, cool.
This is let me bring it in there. Oh, get it on the right side. Okay, Zenyaku.
Hey, I've got this.
Oh.
He lives near you.
Yeah, he lives across the road.
No way.
Yes, way.
Brisbane is too small.
Yeah, like Brisbane, where your brother's your mother. Everyone knows everyone. So this
Pretty
is
much.
Sean Craig.
Yep.
And written by. Let me get my little thingy. Susan Torre.
Yep.
Now this, I really want to plug this, not just because Craig lives across the road from me and lends me his comics all the time, but because this is something that is very rarely seen with Australian comics, and that is, he did it. He did the whole story. He did 5 issues of story.
Yep, I've got all 5. They're in my pile to read, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
Well, they're actually a good read, and they're a fairly quick read.
Okay.
Because they're anime inspired, so there's lots of action. Yeah, Sean does a lot of really detailed, and I think he was saying it took him 4 or 5 years to get it all done.
Oh wow!
But this is something that is rarely seen in Australian comics, where someone starts a limited series of comics and they actually finish it, so you can find out how the story ends. So that gets high marks for me. So let me see.
Oh yeah, damn straight. I was gonna say I've actually got his business card here. I met him at Netherworld.
That's him. That's the guy. That's the guy, officer. Yeah. So we got some so he's got a very anime inspired artwork. Very bloody. He loves Jeff Darrow's work. He loves lots of detail. He loves lots of gore. The story the thing is, when I went and reread it all, and the crazy thing is that the story itself only goes for I don't know, maybe a week, a couple of weeks. But reading it, because I was reading it as he was making it, I was thinking, oh, this is a saga that goes on for years. But no, the story only goes over a very short span of time, just because I was there while it was being ground out.
Oh, yes.
But yes, so my highest recommendation is for Zenyaku, get the whole thing, read the whole thing.
Yep.
Because, yeah, it's good. And it has it's got all sorts of crazy twist anime endings. And you can see Sean's artwork develop from the first issue to the last issue. It's quite remarkable.
Oh, that's cool.
Very
That's really
good.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to boost my window up because let's see if this focuses. Oh, it's not going to focus.
I'll put my glasses
There it
on.
is.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. There's his business card, everyone.
Okay,
See,
everyone.
It comes in handy to run into me.
Screen cap that. Okay, now everyone just start bombing everything he's got. Just start trolling that man as hard as you can. Start ordering pizzas, sending him to his house. Do it. So that's it. But there is one other thing that I would like. So I'll send through the links for all that stuff for you.
Yep, that'd be awesome.
But Jerome, did you have a question you wanted to ask me?
I've been waiting to ask about it. So how's the sci-fi comics going?
I'm so glad you asked. I literally
Ooh,
20 minutes before you got me on, I finished it. I finished the latest page. So your motivation really helped, man.
Well done, Jerome.
I'm excited to see it.
Jerome, I couldn't have done it without you, but here it is. Here's the latest page.
Oh, nice.
Ooh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
Yeah, so I hate it already, but I'm very grateful for you giving me the motivation to actually finish that. So you getting me back next week, right, Shane?
I can't see why not.
Rightio. My challenge is to do another page.
Yes. We'll have you back.
week.
I'm very eager. Yeah, sorry, I'm showing my eagerness.
Oh yeah, very eager. Yeah. Totally.
No, it'd be great to have you back.
You can barely contain yourself. I understand.
Actually, I should probably check the calendar in case we've actually got something else going on.
So you're really keen to get me back so long as you don't have a better offer.
As long as I don't have something that I've planned and forgotten that I've planned. Okay. Let's see. Here it is. Here's the calendar. And we have... No, that'd be perfect.
Cool. I've got another heap of Aussie comics that I picked up that I have to read through, so I'll do a little bit more. I'll give you some more impressions next week. But I do have another. Oh, just jump away from the thing. Another project for the week.
Oh yeah,
comic related, and that is I picked this up on Gumtree for $5. So I'm going to give this a read.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
I'm curious what that's all about, actually. Hang on, I'll just boost you up there.
Yeah,
This is another quality Australian indie.
This is Alan Moore's favorite comic.
Oh, really?
He loves it.
Is this being sarcastic? Am I missing something?
I'm being so sarcastic.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know the story. I don't know the story at all, so...
But I'm very interested. I wouldn't want to have to spend $50 to read this, but I will spend $5 to see what it is. My general impression with Jeff Johns' comics is that he writes good superheroes, but he doesn't write good human beings. Everything is very superhero-y, but I don't think any there's just no normal people.
Yeah, they can be very godlike when he's writing these characters. Yeah. They're always above people.
Well, we shall see. But anyway, that's my project. So, yeah. Any other questions?
No. I think that sums it up. I'm going to try to at least read one thing by next week. Am I allowed to read ComX Presents and then review that since we've got a Kickstarter for it? And no one else can read it but me because I'm the only person who has the pages.
I get the feeling you're going to give it a glowing review, Shane.
Yeah,
I think you're going to be very positive on that.
Well, from what I've seen of it so far, it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. And that was just from skimming it. So I'm sure if I get into the story, it will just be amazing.
I can't stop you. I can't stop you. Much as I'd
Cool.
like to, I can't.
Well, I have a huge pile here, so I'll try to get through one of them at least. So it's not just you, Brad.
That's cool.
So
yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on. See you next week. Give us those details so we can whack them into the end of the article. And have a good night. Hopefully this lockdown ends soon. See you, Jerome. And see everyone who's watching. Night,
See you guys. Take care.